Hi, everyone. So we are on the first lesson today, lesson 1 in module 3. That's why it's M3, page 7. M3 meaning module 3, lesson 1. All right, so strike that, invert that. Think about where that's, where we'll use it in the lesson, right? So inverses of power functions. And if you guys remember power functions, they were like, these ones, parabola, the cubic, the one that has a flatter one, it's a flatter on the bottom, the quartic and the quintic. And for our do now today, this was we were trying to figure out function, not a function. All right, and if you notice, oh, we didn't write the answer for the last one. Oops. So remember the vertical line test, that's the one that tells you whether if it crosses only one time, then it is a function. If it crosses more than one time, like 2 times or 3 times, then it's definitely not a function. Even at one point, that's what happens, it's not a function. And this is the vertical line that we were using right here. Here's our vertical line, and you just kind of like go through and kind of see, does it cross at any point more than once? And we found that the first one, nope, doesn't. Second one, yeah, in all sorts of places, right? All these points right here, if you notice right here, we put it right here and we're like, oh yeah, see those 2 points? Not a function, crosses 2 times. And if you remember, for algebraically, we said for every x, there's only one y. For every input, there's only one output. Any one of those ways is fine, right? And so some people notice right here, well, what about at 0, 0, right? And if you remember, we did something that was kind of like this, but if you zoom in very closely, not in the YouTube, but zoom in very closely, like in Desmos or something, you will notice that you actually can't, it doesn't reach 0. It's like really close, right? But it doesn't actually get to 0. The only place where it gets to 0 is at 0, 0. That is the only place. So it does actually pass the vertical line test. So yep. So for the last one, we should say it's a function. Because it passes the VLT. So if you were not in class and you don't remember what the VLT is, remember the vertical line test. Makes it a lot simpler. So the vertical line test. Why is it called the vertical line test? Because it's a vertical line. All right, and learning goals today, sketch. So we are going to be sketching graphs of inverses of power functions using the vertical line test, which is the thing that we just did, to determine whether an inverse relation is a function, to use graphs to determine whether a function is invertible, and to use the horizontal line test to determine whether a function is invertible, right? And so we're going to talk about that word invertible, which has to do with inverse. And think about the word inverse, like if you're going to invert something. Somebody had said in class, like in Zoom, when your picture gets inverted, like it's reversed. So this is my right hand, but it may look like my left hand. I don't know, actually on the video, I've never checked that. So, but in Zoom, that's what it was, right? So I was doing this, but then it looked like to them that it was my left hand, but it's actually my right hand. That's what I'm saying. So that inverse. So invertible is like that adjective version of that. And if you did not do this in class, take out a sheet of paper, something that looks like this. Because we're gonna, not construction paper, because we're gonna do a couple of tracings, is what we did. And we're gonna go, and so we're gonna skip this. And we're gonna go to page 9. We're looking at this graph right here. And if you notice, don't worry about the height and the width. We're not gonna go into like what this models or anything like that, right? So what we're gonna do is you're gonna just trace it like how I did. So I just put this on the book and just trace, like back when you used to trace. Did you ever trace pictures? And so you just trace the picture and you're just like, okay, graph done. Okay, and then once you do that, what we're gonna do is we're going to actually switch the X and the Y, okay? We're gonna switch not only are we gonna switch the X and the Y, so the X positive is now gonna be the Y positive, boop, switch, and the X negative is going to switch with the Y negative. Boop. Okay, so the negatives with the negatives and positives with the positives. Okay, so what in the world would that look like? I don't know if I can really show you on here, but let's find out. So if you look right here, okay, it's not a very big picture, but so look very closely. Okay, so notice right here, this is positive and this is also positive. So we want it so that the X is now on top. This positive one is going to be on top. So I'm just going to go like that. Okay, so now X is on the positive, right? So, and this kind of looks like a reverse of what we normally have. Or is it the same? Maybe it's the same. And then what you're going to do from here is but we don't want the positive Y to be on the left. We want it to be on the right. Right. So what are we going to do? We're going to just flip it. You know, magic, right? And so there's the Y's on the positive on going to the right. Okay, so now the positives have flipped and the negatives have flipped. So if you flip the positives, then obviously the negatives will flip too. So if you notice right here, here's the Y-axis and here's the X-axis. Okay, and what direction is it going in? And hopefully in the video, this will be pointing to the upper right. And if it's not, then I'm sorry. It got inverted. Okay, good example of that. So if you take a look at this, what we did here was so this is the old Y-axis right here, and this is the old X-axis. So, and again, this is positive, negative. This is to kind of help me get my bearings. So if you notice right here, we're going from the origin. I like to, everything starts at the origin, right? And so we go on the positive side where it's positive X and positive Y. So we're going to do that same thing here. So that's why it would be up here instead of being on to the left. Because if it was this way, let me just draw that line right here. If it was this way, then notice that it is on the old X-axis. This would be the positive old X-axis, but negative Y-axis, right? Do you see how that's not the exact same line, right? Because you're not supposed to change the line. You're just changing the X and Y axis. We're just doing some manipulation here, right? Because this paper didn't change. So yeah, so this would be incorrect. So make sure on your paper that it goes this way. And the question is it a function? And you're like, well, yes, vertical line test, right? Going across, that is definitely a function. All right, and that's what we wrote there. So we're gonna go to the next page and we looked at this parabola, right? And I have it here. So you do your tracing, do your parabola just like this, right? And again, put the paper on your book and you do the tracing. If you don't have that, then I would put your paper on your computer or on your phone or whatever you're on right now, and then trace that. Just not very hard because you don't want to crack your screen. Don't blame me. Can't buy you a new phone. And then, so what you're going to do again is you're going to make the X-axis on the top and the Y-axis on the side, pointing to the right. So X positive is pointing up and Y positive is pointing to the right. Right. So again, pause. Don't look at the screen. Pause and then do it. It kind of has the answer. Okay, so if you take a look at this, and this is actually really good for you. Like if you want to go into like dentistry, I remember my friend who went into dentistry had to do a lot of these rotations in her head, and they would go, okay, if you flip this to the right 180 degrees and then turn it upside, like what would it look like? Actually, you need to know that it's important because teeth, 3-dimensional. But yeah, so this is a good practice. So what you're going to do again, so we're going to take this X positive. We're going to put it now up on top, but we want that Y to be on the other side. The only way to do that is to flip it. So I know you really can't see it, but there is a parabola that points which way? To the right. Now, again, if in the video this is not to the right, I'm sorry. I don't know how to do that part. I don't know how to uninvert and invert the invert. You know what I mean? So again, it should be pointing to the right, just like this. And here's my line to check for, what is it called? The vertical line test. And as you can see, just like, where was it again? In the do now. Yeah, same thing. Okay, so there is that. And again, so this is not a function because it fails the VLT, or if you want to say it does not pass the VLT because fail seems so harsh, that's fine. We can say it does not pass the VLT. It's like, you didn't fail algebra, you did not pass algebra. Semantics. I'm just kidding. Of course you passed algebra. Okay, so poor Cole here. Cole is struggling. He is in all of our classes. And what did he do? So, okay, it looks exactly like ours actually, right? But if you look very closely, you zoom in, right? You'll notice that, what did he do wrong, right? The plus and the minus is actually flipped. So this is what he did. He's like, okay, make the X on top. Okay, now this is it. Like, that's not it, because that's positive and that's negative. So that's good, but the Y's are backwards, right? Oh, wait, that's not what he did. No, is that what he did? Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah, so it's backwards. Now I have to think about it. What did he do? Put it up this way. Yeah. And then we need to flip it. Oh yeah. So he just, what did he just went? Boop. Yeah, that doesn't work out. So like, see how the Y works, but the X doesn't work? It's not a good day. So yeah, so this part right here, the old X, I should say, or the new Y, whichever one you want to call it, right? That's flipped, right? That's not what we want. Again, so yeah, so that was the wrong part. So that's why it's a thumbs down. Sad days, Cole. But now you know. All right, so we're gonna do one last one. Again, press pause, do it yourself. Don't look at the right-hand side of the screen. It's not the answer, the wrong answer. Just kidding. And then so you're gonna copy it down. I'm assuming that you've done it already, you've tried. The best way to do this is to try. So here we go. There's our Y up here and there's our X. Again, we want to flip the X and the Y's. So we want the X on top, positives up here, negatives down here. So that's good. Again, Y is on the left and we don't want it on the left. We want it on the right. So we go, whoop. I don't know if you can see, but can you see? It goes up and to the right, right? So it's kind of doing this to the right. The way I like to think about it is, so notice it's going really close to the, let me use your blue. So if you see it's going close from the origin, goes close to the X, the original X, right? And then goes up towards the Y, like to the, in the Y direction, right? So again, this is the old X right here, right? So it's going towards the X, which is, okay, there. And then it's going towards, afterwards it's gonna go towards the old Y, which is, there we go. So this is what it should look like. And is it a function? Yes. And do you see this line right here, this example yellow or orange line right here? Yeah, and if we were to drag them, pull it all the way across, that's a function. So function because it passes the VLT. So what are these things that we're transforming? Why are we even doing this, right? These are all, when we switch the X and the Y's, these are all inverses. You were just graphing the inverse. Remember the learning target, right? Where you're going to sketch the graph of inverses. Guess what you've been doing? The inverse. I know, crazy. So that's what we're doing. And all these questions that we're what is it? What are we doing? All the questions that we're skipping, we're kind of already answering some of them. I'm just asking it to you instead of just reading it. Just trying to, you know, make things succinct. So we're gonna skip this part right here, and we're gonna go to invertible functions. So what in the world is an invertible function? Is a function right here, says if the inverse of a function is also a function, then it's invertible, okay, or f is invertible. And so we write the inverse of a function as f, this -1, like a power, but it's not a power, and of x. So we call that, when we say it out loud, so if I ask you, read this, you would not say f -1x. You would say inverse of f of x, okay? And you're like, where do you mean? What does it say inverse? That inverse is this part right here, this -1 thing, okay? That indicates, oh, it's the inverse of f of x. So we just say, oh, inverse of f of x. That's what you say. And if we ask, okay, so let me scroll, let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see everything. So if you notice right here, I did put in there the 6 power functions that we talked about in the previous quarter. And if you notice right here, yeah, we did the first 3, right? So we know that these 2 were invertible, right? Because the first one we did that, and it was exactly the same one, right? And so that was invertible because both those were functions. The S, remember the S looking one, that was also invertible. This U not invertible. Not you, the U. And so if you notice, and so we're saying, so some people notice, oh, it's the 1, 3, and 5. Those are all invertible functions, right? Another person noticed, oh, it's all the odd ones, right? And all the even powered ones, those were not invertible, right? Not convertible, invertible. And so these are invertible. And so there was an allusion to what is it? The Avengers. I was not thinking of that one, but they were thinking of it as inevitable, or it is I am inevitable. But these are I am invertible. If Avengers was a math movie, this is what would happen. And half of them would die. No, I'm just kidding. Half of them would disappear. Wouldn't that be amazing? If half the problems disappeared. No, not amazing. More appeared. All right. So how do you know which ones are invertible and which ones are not? This is actually the answer to number 3. But so if it passes both, I didn't even talk about this. I'm sorry. So I just got so carried away with Avengers. So now the horizontal line test is very much similar to the vertical line test, except instead of this, you have this. I know. You have this. Instead of shh, you have mustache. I'm just kidding. So you're going to check this way. Does it cross more than once? It's basically you turning your head sideways and going, okay, does it pass the vertical line test? It's doing that. Because remember, we turned it to its side and then flipped it. So it's like doing this and saying, oh, does it work? Right. And so that's basically what the horizontal line test is, right? And if you notice for the first one, third one, and the fifth one, all of them pass the horizontal line test. So if you can pass the vertical line test and the horizontal line test, that means it's an invertible function, just like that. The end. I'm just kidding. But that's going to be the premise of that. All right, and that's actually that is pretty close to the end. And if you did not do your homework, right? What was your? Oh, I already passed the homework. You look at number 3. This is it. It's in your Canvas page. It's already there for you. And if you scroll down, there's a really nice quote, and then there's the answer, so you can check, right? And so whether is it a function or not a function, and honestly, you don't really need to say, oh, it passes the vertical line test, because we're already assuming that it's a function. Like the previous function was a function. So you don't need to technically say, oh, it passes the vertical line test. You just need to say it passes the horizontal line test, because we're assuming that this is a function, right? Because you can't have an inverse function without it already being a function, if you know what I mean. So therefore, we only need to check if the horizontal line test works. That's all. That's why in the book, in the answer key, and also in the exit ticket, that's why it says just the horizontal line ticket. But if you said the vertical line test and the horizontal, you're not wrong. You're just, but you're kind of stating something that you already know, kind of thing. And on the test, if you just say horizontal line test, that's fine. If you just say a vertical line test, however, that would not be fine, because that only checks for the regular functions and doesn't check for the inverse. It doesn't check if it's invertible, okay? Because all the ones that we're saying, are these invertible, we're assuming that they're already functions, okay? Which all of these are, right? All of these are functions. And so if you look at them, which ones are not, if you're curious, go look at the Canvas page. I'm not gonna tell you. All right, have a good day, everyone, bye.